Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're specifically going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons from the perspective of setting introduction for a tabletop role-playing game, and how on Dungeons & Dragons is truly unprecedented. There exists nothing in the world like Dungeons & Dragons in its structure, right? So let's look at Dungeons & Dragons and look at the settings that it has and how those settings arrive into Dungeons & Dragons. And it is truly astounding because there's no parallel to it anywhere else in any tabletop role-playing game. All right, Forgotten Realms, right? And then Greyhawk, right? These two are currently in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And let's talk about like Blackmoor, right? Blackmoor is not in 5th edition, but Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms are. And they are in Dungeons & Dragons. They're in Dungeons & Dragons, and they're in the current edition of Dungeons & Dragons, right? The now edition of Dungeons & Dragons, because they were selected from an array of existing legacy settings, right? So Forgotten Realms and Greyhawk was more Gary based. Forgotten Realms was more Greenwood based, and these came from the game's true existing robust history, right? And so Dungeons & Dragons came out, it foundationally established the entirety of all tabletop role-playing games. It is the father of all tabletop role-playing games, and it has this unique array of settings. And unlike any other tabletop role-playing game in the world, I don't think there's any other single company who has one single product that has multiple fantasy worlds underneath of it that are current, like that come from its legacy history. Like, Pathfinder, right? It just has Galarian, right? Now, there are games that attach other settings to their systems, one being the past and one being the future. Like Starfinder is actually connected to Pathfinder, right? But that has a logical narrative arc, right? There are narrative reasons why these multiple settings exist. And that narrative, that's a narrative that came from a logical extension, right? Like Starfinder is simply the future of Pathfinder, right? But there's no logical reason why Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms exist narratively. There is a historical reason. If you understand the history of Dungeons & Dragons, you understand why those two settings are there. And then multiple other settings, and settings which have been left behind, right? Oriental Adventures, for instance, and Dark Sun, right? That will probably never be revived, right? And so Dungeons & Dragons setting history is thoroughly unique. There's nothing like it, right? Now, if I'm wrong, and there is a tabletop role-playing game system that has multiple fantasy settings, right? That is not a universal system, right? I don't think GURPS would count for this. I'd love to hear it, but I think Dungeons & Dragons history is truly unique from that perspective. However, what's really unique about what doubles down on the uniqueness of Dungeons & Dragons settings is how are Dungeons & Dragons settings born today, right? Oh, and you know what? Actually, we got to talk about Eberron, right? Not only do you have settings that were created by the company that owned Dungeons & Dragons, TSR, Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro. There have been 3, right? But also, Eberron is truly unique in that Eberron was created from a contest, and it was fan-created, and all the fans competed to create a truly epic, truly incredible, really unique and beautiful setting, which is still existed in Dungeons & Dragons, still active, an active, engaged setting that is still fully viable, not a legacy setting, like literally an active setting, right? So Eberron is really unique. And then on top of that, let's talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and it's connected to Magic the Gathering, and it's connected to Magic the Gathering, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, right? So here you see something that is truly unprecedented in any other tabletop role-playing game in the world. And if you think I'm wrong, I'm willing to hear you, right, in the comments. But listen to this. So Magic the Gathering just dropped the pre-release for Magic the Gathering, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, the Willy Wonka of all CCGs, right? Literally is going to make someone a millionaire, right, or a celebrity, right? Honestly, I think the smartest person will never sell that card. They'll actually keep it and be the person they'll be literally an IRL Frodo, the one person in the world who has the ring, right? Like, I actually think the celebrity's worth more than the money. That's interesting, like you can debate, but I actually think you'd be better off keeping it and being able, like, you don't pay a one-time sum and give this to some schmuck who's going to throw it into a deck, right? Just keep it and be the one person in the world who is the IRL Frodo, right? So, but get this, so you have Magic the Gathering, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, and really what this is, in my humble opinion, when you look at that set, this is an audition. This is an audition from the Tolkien estate to be a canon Dungeons & Dragons setting, right? Because what they've done is historically a staged path, okay, from and that staged path goes from specifically that staged path goes from, so it is a staged path, and it arcs, right? And Ravnica, Theros, Strixhaven, there are lots of these, settings which were Magic the Gathering settings, and then based on sales or based on any other criteria, became Dungeons & Dragons official canon. And that's exactly where Lord of the Rings is right now. It's been released as an MTG set, but historically that has been an audition to be a D&D canon setting. And I think a lot of people would be very interested in this, and there's a lot on the line, because I think Lord of the Rings is in trouble, right? The Tolkien estate has struggled, right, to get the right partners. Was Amazon the right partner for Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power? I don't know. That's a tough call, right? It does, maybe not, right? But Hasbro, that seems like a really good fit. That seems like a very natural fit, right? So you have this. So Dungeons & Dragons, the way it arrives. So basically, Dungeons & Dragons is the only tabletop role-playing game in the world where products audition in a different product to join the Dungeons & Dragons, to join the Dungeons & Dragons intellectual IP. And based on the sales, the Tolkien estate might go, oh my gosh, you guys, you took our Tolkien IP and made it gold, right? And brought us tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions, some fraction, if not an entire $1 billion, right? Like, and again, Hasbro has the power to do this. There's not another tabletop role-playing game in the world that is, and it can even spell win when it comes to this level, right? So I think it's really unique. Just the mixture, the array of fantasy settings for Dungeons & Dragons, and then this incredible, and then the contest entry path that Eberron went through, and now this product audition, this auxiliary product audition to be within Dungeons & Dragons. It is it's truly unprecedented anywhere in tabletop role-playing games, truly unique, and truly an incredible achievement in intellectual property. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.